Kerr. Coach Kerr, how are you?
How you doing, Ro?
Good. You're looking great.
Well, I've lost my razor blade during the quarantine.
Well, you've got a good look, and I appreciate you taking the time. Is this your first Instagram live chat, or are you a pro at this? Have you done?
No, this is my first one, as you might be able to tell. So I'll try to do okay with the technology.
Well, you're off to a great start. You're much better than I was. It was a little embarrassing because I was, here I am, the Silicon Valley rep, and the first time I did it, I got all this critique of nothing that I said, but that my frame wasn't correct and my sound wasn't correct and all of this. But you got everything right on your first attempt, so that's impressive.
Well, I have 3 kids at home in their 20s, so that's my technical support team.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, I always appreciate your perspective, and people know you, of course, as a great player, coach. But what I found most remarkable is just your personal stories and your engagement with the issues, and you help shed light on things important for our nation and country. And I guess I thought we could start, by talking about some of the essential workers, and a lot of us in Congress have been. And around the country, I've realized, the people who bring our groceries, who actually are the ones who are driving the trucks and keeping the internet open, more than the politicians or the basketball players or the lawyers. And these are the people who actually keep society running. And I think we've just developed a whole different level of appreciation for who's essential in society and how we should treat them. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Oh man, I totally agree. I mean, just the perspective that this quarantine has brought, it's allowed all of us to take a step back and say, oh, wow. I mean, essential means the people who are allowing us to function every single day in the manner in which we're used to doing so. Just going and buying groceries. The people who are supplying all of the food and getting the food in the trucks and to the grocery stores, and the people who are working at the grocery stores, at the cash registers. And without them, we wouldn't be able to feed our families and be at home during the quarantine and fight this virus. So I think it's given us all a brand new perspective on what exactly essential really means.
I couldn't agree with you more, Coach Kerr. And I think we owe these folks a basic decency, right? I mean, they're taking a risk to go out and at risk to their own health, sometimes their family's health. One, they ought to be paid for that and have hazard pay. We ought to make sure they're safe. I mean, there was in my district someone was going to the grocery store just asking that they get masks and have social distancing. I mean, I think these are basic things. I thought it'd be interesting. Maybe you could talk about one thing. Everyone knows all the star players and things on a basketball team and sees on TV. But who are some of the essential workers who don't get recognized necessarily or make the headlines or the papers for the Warriors or basketball team to do well? I mean, who are people who we forget, but you notice and are essential?
Sure.
What you do?
Well, we have close to 400 employees with the Warriors, and you can imagine, all of the different roles that our employees play. I mean, from ticket sellers to marketing and community service, and the arena workers night after night, coming to prepare and clean the arena, and all the concession workers. There's everybody. It really does take the entire organization to put on a game. And so, right now, what our organization is doing is more than anything, trying to take care of each other and take care of our employees and keep everybody afloat as we push forward, and then hopefully get to the point where we're playing basketball with fans in the stands again. But I think we're probably looking at playing some games, I should say we're preparing to play some games without fans because that might be the first step. We don't know at this point. But our organization has to be ready for whatever the league and the city asks of us. And there's just a ton of people who are involved in that preparation. For those of us on the basketball side, we are just trying to do our best to do as much work as we can to prepare for either a return to this season or the start of next season in the fall. And so there's plenty of work to be done on that front as well.
I know I started by saying that basketball maybe is not as essential as people delivering the groceries, but in reality, sports is a huge part of our culture and our life, and a lot of people. One of the challenges, and I think we probably aren't even going to see all the mental health issues and that are going to face us, but one of the challenges that people are having is they're quarantined at home. They aren't being able to see family. They can't turn on the TV and watch basketball or baseball, and often they're alone. I'm sure it's got to be disappointing for you and for players to be going through this. And I wonder if you have any advice on how you've dealt with it, how you've counseled players to deal with it, and how people who really have lost so much in their daily life should go about dealing with this, which could go on for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on your own set of circumstances, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have my family with me during the quarantine, and so being empty nesters, my wife and I are taking advantage of the time with our 3 kids who are home with us right now while this lasts. So we're spending a lot of time together. We're cooking a lot more than we have in the past, especially when we're all on the run, and we were more likely to, pick up something fast. Now we're trying to use the time and cooking more and spending more time at the dinner table and maybe watching a movie or something afterwards. So as I said, we know we're very fortunate to be able to be together and to have the means to take care of each other and to take care of ourselves. But to be able to spend the time together right now has been a real blessing for us.
That's wonderful. I've had a similar experience. I mean, I've been on the road so much this past year with the presidential election, going back and forth to California, and I've got 2 young kids. And I said to someone, I've been watching a lot of Daniel Tiger with them, and so it's a real. For some of us, it has been a blessing, but for other people, it's been some of the hardest hit times. I mean, I had someone call me yesterday and say, look, they've spent 20 years building up a restaurant and they're going to lose it. And and what do you think? I mean, not being political about it, but just in terms of the values, what do you think should be guiding our country as we think about our economic recovery, as we think about helping people who've been hardest hit? What do you think should be some of the principles that we're keeping in mind?
Well, I think just doing our best to keep each other afloat, because we're going to get through this. There was a pandemic, as we all know, 100 years ago that was devastating. And as awful as it was, the world made it. We came out on the other side, and so I think the feeling has to be we've got to look after each other. Number one, from a health standpoint, but also number two, from an economic standpoint. Can we just keep each other afloat? And whatever that means, whether it's if you're in the government trying to, provide economic relief for individuals and small businesses, or if you're a citizen and you just want to, get groceries for your elderly neighbor who could use your help, or maybe you buy takeout food from a favorite restaurant to help keep them afloat. I think it could mean anything, but it's the general idea of just trying to help one another as we make our way through this mess.
No, that's really well put. One of the things I think this has taught us is the need to rely on science and experts and those who understand medicine. I'm so proud of Dr. Cody in Santa Clara County because as you know, we were one of the first counties, the 6 Bay Area counties, to shelter in place. And it turns out she was listening to epidemiologists at Stanford and Santa Clara to make that decision. And I was thinking, I mean, I don't like often using sports analogies, but my guess is when you're coaching and, if there's a player who's injured or something, you don't just make a decision based on your gut, or maybe you do. You probably listen to doctors and advice in making a decision. And I wonder, as a leader, if you can talk about how you consult expert opinion, and
sure.
What you think that should mean in terms of listening to science and experts.
Well, I think you make a great analogy, Ro, because we do lean on the experts when it comes to players and their injuries and their recovery. And we will always defer to the experts and follow their advice. And we do so with the full knowledge that nobody has all the answers and that it's not always going to turn out exactly as we would hope. And we've seen that. We've had injuries that were really devastating. And looking back, you think, boy, maybe we could have done this, maybe we could have done that, but that's not really the case. If we had every answer, everything would be easy. And so I think when you talk about listening to scientists and listening to the experts, which is really great advice, it can't be with this sort of black or white notion that that person is going to be right all the time and this person's going to be wrong all the time. It's such a gray area out there, and a big part of getting through this whole process is to navigate our way through, and the experts are the ones to guide us, but it doesn't mean they're not going to make mistakes.
Absolutely. I think you raise a great point, and they have to do it in conversation with the community, because ultimately we're a democracy and it can't just be experts telling us what to do. But I think having a process of listening to them is so critical at this time. One of the things I've been struck by is by and large, I mean, now I know we've had protests and concern, but by and large, so many Americans have been complying with shelter in place or orders by the governor or the mayor, and really taking it seriously and have been dealing with social distancing and doing that. You even had Congress in the beginning come together in a way I hadn't seen since I've been there. And, those bills weren't perfect, but finally we seemed like we were getting together and doing something. We have such a divided country. I mean, we've talked before about inability to get basic things on background checks for gun violence and inability to do things on climate change. Do you think there's any sense of common purpose or shared purpose that we're going to get coming out of this, or any sense that could heal some of the divisions, or are we going to be just as divided after this as we always have?
I would hope that we would have some common purpose at once this is all over, and I do think it's going to take leaders in place to call for that. Leaders at every level, whether it's in the community, in business, in sports, in the government. We need people to pull together and to ask each other to pull together. And I think that's one of the things that's sort of demoralizing today, is just how divisive our president is. And, whether you swing to one side or the other on the political front shouldn't matter when it comes to a leadership and a unity that our country needs. And I think that's the most important thing. So what is this pandemic asking from us? What can we do to come out of this in a stronger fashion? I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's trying to unite and bring people together, and we need as many people on board as possible.
All right. Well, a couple more questions. I know you're taking time out of from your 3 kids. So I appreciate your
They're
doing.
probably tired of me anyway at this point.
Yeah, it's I'm sure that you're getting the benefits of not being an empty nester.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Well, yeah, at 2 and 1, my kids, I mean, this is the age they love you unconditionally, but I'm
No
sure
doubt.
that's hard.
Well, you also have something to look forward to. Once they get to be my kids' age, you open up a bottle of wine together around 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So there's plenty to look ahead to also.
That's great. Let me ask you this. In other crises in our country, we've usually come together after that and done big things. I mean, that's been the history of American democracy. And, a couple big things I think we ought to do after this is on healthcare, right? I mean, it's a healthcare crisis. How in the world can we not have everyone have healthcare? And I'm for Medicare for all, but they're different. People have different opinions, but certainly everyone should agree that healthcare is a human right and every American should have health care. The other thing I'm struck by is that, we've put so much money in defense, and defense is important, but $740 billion in defense, and we only put $10 billion into our CDC, $40 billion into our National Institute of Health, and didn't have enough research on vaccines, on testing, on capacity. So those are 2 big things I really think we ought to be doing. I don't know if you have thoughts on what you think a couple agenda items for the country can be after as we deal with this crisis.
Well, definitely the safety net for those less fortunate that healthcare provides, among other possible solutions. But I know there's no easy answer. But again, the idea that we should be looking after one another and that we should be making sure everybody is taken care of in some way, and the healthcare issue should be non-negotiable, right? Everybody deserves to be taken care of if they fall ill or if their family falls ill. And I agree with you in terms of the preparation for a pandemic. What I've read is that history shows that under every administration, the further away you get from the most recent pandemic, the less funding goes to the CDC, because you sort of take for granted, nothing's going to happen. And I would imagine this will be a huge wake-up call, and we will be much better prepared for the next one, I would hope.
Two final questions for you, Coach Kerr. Let me ask this. There's people often say to folks like you, what's the gain in getting politically engaged or civically engaged? You're only going to upset someone. You're only going to upset some fans. You're only going to upset someone watching. Just keep to yourself. Talk about basketball. Talk about winning. Don't take a position in things that are controversial. And one of the things I admire about you is you haven't taken that mold. I mean, when you care about something, you've been willing to speak out. And I wonder what your advice would be to people. I mean, there's so many people who have that ability now. And from your experience, how have you found that, speaking out about issues and taking that risk?
Well, I think I appreciate the compliment. I think that there's a responsibility that comes as a citizen in a democracy. The whole point is that this is our country, and if we want to speak up, we have the right to speak up, and that's really important. And it's really up to us to if we desire to see some kind of change, some kind of effect, then it's our job to step up and do it. Yours and mine and everybody else's. It doesn't mean that everybody has to speak, and people who aren't comfortable speaking out should feel very comfortable in not doing so. But the beauty of this country is that we all have the right to not only speak, but to try to make an impact where we can. And I know that just having the platform that I do, coaching the Warriors. I know that at least people will listen to me. I know not everybody's going to agree, but I know that people will listen, and I try to make an impact that will positively impact people.
Well, last question. Anytime we do these things, we always get a stream of calls for Popovich Kerr, and I always correct it to Kerr Popovich. I don't know why they always pair the two of you. I mean, but let me ask you this in terms of, right now what we're missing is a leadership of someone who's can inspire and say something hopeful. And, I want to give you the chance because so many people look up to you, respect you, look up to the Warriors. What can you say to people who are tuning in now or are going to watch this later to give them hope, to give them some sense of inspiration in the next few months as we deal with this crisis?
Well, I think, again, Ro, I think the biggest thing is to keep plugging away each day and relying on each other. It's just, I know for me, it just feels like now the days are just bleeding into one another, and time has no meaning, and what day it is doesn't matter. It's really been a bizarre journey, a bizarre time in our lives. But we are going to make it through, and we've got to be able to rely on each other. And so my advice, my thoughts are to reach out to people who need a phone call or a text, and try to help any way you can. Help your neighbor, help your friends and family, help your local restaurant. Go buy some takeout from them to keep them going if you can. Support your local food bank. Anything that you are capable of doing as a citizen to help. If we all have that mindset, then we'll keep each other going. And I think that's the main thing. And then we're going to make it through. Once all is said and done, we'll get through to the other side, and hopefully we'll be better for it.
Well, I appreciate that. It's always such a pleasure talking to you because you have just basic decency, and I really appreciate anytime there are important moments like this, you're spending time and helping share your perspective with people. So thank you for taking time away from your family and doing this. And you did great for your first Instagram Live.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Ro, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. Trying to help everybody during this time, and we appreciate.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.